Hey everybody, Rabbi Moshe Rothschild here, the Global Israel Alliance, recording the summary of the week's news from Israel for June 28th, Friday, 2019. Sorry about the background here, but I am actually up north in the city of Tzfat, so I'm not home to record with my normal backgrounds, but here we go. This week, the Russians, the Israelis, and the Americans met for a defense summit, and it was very interesting to hear the different positions. But basically, the Russians said that we should not vilify Iran, that Iran is not the world's biggest problem, and we should not equate them with terrorist groups. The United States said that they need to continue to impose crippling sanctions on Iran, and that is what will bring them to the table. And Israel said, look, what we can all agree upon is that we don't want Iran to have a foothold in Syria, that Syria should be free of all foreign fighters. Basically, all the three countries agreed that they want peace in the region, and they don't want Iran to be an instigator, but how to get there and the level of Iran's, how we consider the level of Iran's involvement in terrorism was definitely a point of contention. Otzma Yehudit, which is the far right-wing party, announced that it was going to drop out from the coalition of the right-wing parties, and we will see how that affects the elections, which are coming up in September. And the feel-good story, Rwanda Air announced this week they're going to begin regular weekly flights direct to Israel from Rwanda. I think it's weekly, once a week. And they're inaugurating, this week they had the inaugural flight, which is interesting. Now, of course, the main news this week was the beginning of the Bahrain conference. It was called Prosperity to Peace, and it's the beginning of the unfurling of the United States proposal for peace in this region. And the thought was to begin with the economy first, and then the political solution second, which was a very interesting take in what they were trying to achieve. So at this conference, they basically is what they're offering is the following: a $50 billion fund, which will be managed by an international development bank, and that will decide on the allocation of the $50 billion. The majority of the $50 billion would come from Arab states in the region, and a portion would also come from the United States. There would be 179 different projects, including projects that'll improve the life of Palestinians vis-a-vis health, roads to connect the West Bank or Judea and Samaria and Gaza. There will be projects in infrastructure, tourism. There'll be a fund for business innovation. And the plan is meant to create at least 1 million jobs, to double the gross domestic product of the Palestinians. It will reduce unemployment to under 10% and cut poverty by 50%. That's the idea of the plan. And this will be the first step in the peace process, afterwards moving on to the more difficult, which is the politics. Now, the Palestinians unfortunately rejected this, did not even attend the summit in Bahrain, and so I don't know what the chances of success are. As our prime minister said, he cannot believe that they rejected this before even hearing any of the details or anything about it. But stay tuned. We'll see what happens. Now, quote from the conference, it began with Jared Kushner, and this is part of the quote. He said, "Despite what those who have let you down in the past say, President Trump and the Americans have not given up on you," meaning the Palestinian people. Now, when he says those who may have let you down, he's referring, I think, of course, to the Palestinian leadership. Poll after poll after poll has shown that the average Arab on the street is very interested in this plan. It's only the leadership that is not interested. And so, again, we'll see what happens. Continuing in our next story, Arab finance ministers met in Cairo this week to discuss the deepening financial crisis in the Palestinian Authority. What set off the crisis? Well, Israel was meant to transfer $193 million just for the month of January. This is back a few months already. But the Palestinians refused the money. Why did they refuse the money? Well, this is tax money that Israel collects on behalf of the Palestinian at the ports, and every month they transfer this. It makes up about 50% of the Palestinian budget. But they refused the money. Why? Because Israel deducted 5% from the money that they were transferring. Why did Israel deduct that money? Because 5% is the amount of money that the Palestinians pay to terrorists who have killed Westerners, Americans, Israelis. They literally give salaries. It's called pay to slay. They give salaries to those who murder Jews, murder Americans, murder Westerners. And so Israel said, hey, if that's what you're going to use the money for, we're going to deduct the amount of money that you used to pay salaries to murderers, which was 5%. So the Palestinians rejected the entire sum of money. So the other option is for them to simply say, hey, we're not going to pay terrorists, and then they'll get all the money. But they decide that if Israel's going to deduct any money, then they're going to refuse it all. So they've been the cause of their own deepening financial crisis. So again, developing story. We'll see if the Arab states are going to help them out. And finally, another very feel-good story, Aviation, which is an Israeli aviation company. They displayed this week an electric plane at the Paris Aviation Conference. Now, the plane is a commuter plane. It can hold 9 passengers. It can hold 2 pilots, travel 273 miles an hour, 621 miles on one charge. It's a commuter plane. They have orders in the double digits from a company in the United States called Cape Air. I've definitely flown on Cape Air. They do code shares, I think, with United. They're a regional carrier. And the plane will be ready in 2022 for commercial use. Each plane costs about $4 million, and it only costs $200 an hour to operate, which is I think less than half of what a fuel engine cost to run. So another amazing Israeli innovation, and we'll see where that goes, if it will be developed for commercial airliners, international, or if it just remains a commuter airline. All right, that's it for this week. Rabbi Moshe Rothschild of the Global Israel Alliance, wishing you a great Shabbat, a great weekend, wherever you might be.